Good morning, everybody. I know it's a blistery one out there, and just want to reiterate to our fans and thank them for their support on Saturday. And we really fed off that energy that they brought and got a great win. And like I told our guys, it's not exactly where we want to be at this point in time in our season, but uh, we've dealt with all the challenges. Let's move forward and let's build on where we're at in the conference season. So good top 25 win at home and look forward to another exciting challenge going on the road to Norman and playing a really tough opponent, at their place and a tough 3-game stretch between, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. So we practiced yesterday, took Sunday off, mandatory day off on Sunday, and practiced yesterday, prepared, started a preparation for Oklahoma. Today we'll travel out. Looks like we'll be flying out of Pittsburgh today due to the issues with conditions in Clarksburg and our charter issues. So we'll be flying out of Pittsburgh, so it's going to make it a little bit longer travel day, but we'll be leaving here at 11 o'clock and headed up the road to charter out to Norman. And we plan to practice when we get there this evening in Lloyd Noble. So great challenge for us and an exciting opportunity to go out and a top 15 program on the road, and hopefully we can build off some of the momentum that we mustered up on Saturday. So they're coming off a couple losses, and I'm sure they're hungry. And we talked about the mindset from our standpoint. It's we're not content by any means, and that should be the standard in our program moving forward, that we can beat anybody any given night if we play together and we play well together and we lock in on a game plan.
Thanks, Coach. Our first question will go to Greg Hunter.
So, Josh, you mentioned a little bit of the travel issues. So, I mean, just sort of follow up with that a little bit. You had no problems getting out of Harvest Ridge. It looks like you're in your office. And do you have to go gather up some players? Some of them probably haven't driven in snow. Do you have to go round them up a little bit?
Some of our staff members have 4-wheel drive trucks. I assume if we're having issues right now, hopefully they're out gathering up as we speak. I haven't heard of any issues getting in at this point, but certainly wouldn't be surprised if we're late getting out of here, trying to get everybody, here to the bus and ready to go. And I'm sure that bus ride is going to take some time to get up to Pittsburgh, but it is, the travel's a beast in this league, and as certainly as hard as anybody in our program trying to figure out, getting places efficiently. So nothing you can control. So we jump on the bus at 11 and start heading north and fly out of Pittsburgh, fly into Oklahoma City, and then make that drive from Oklahoma City to Norman. So it'll be a long travel day, and we'll adjust our practice accordingly this evening to figure out, based on, what our legs are like by the time, we get to the end of the day to get to practice this evening.
So the second question from that, just road games in general, Big 12 especially, but everybody, road victories are precious. You guys obviously have problems at Houston, but you saw Kansas at UCF, Houston at Iowa State. Why are road wins so difficult to get?
A combination of things. I mean, one of the first things I look at when I look at our schedule, and especially when you look up a matchup, you look at days of rest prior to. For instance, looking into the, Kansas plays tonight, and we play tomorrow, and we go head to head on Saturday. So they'll have an extra day of rest prior to playing us. So those things come into a factor. Those are huge in this league, especially when you get into mid-January, February, when rest is as important as anything. So anytime you have to spend more time traveling, it's certainly a detriment to your program. So there's nothing you can do about it. Every team has a different scenario and situation, and we know what our travel challenges are. We just have to live with it and try to manage it the best we can.
Next question goes to John and Tony.
Hey, Josh, just looking at the Oklahoma here, give me some of your thoughts on them. Looks like they gang rebound a little bit. They got a good margin there, but don't have a guy with a ton of rebounds spread out pretty evenly. And it looks too like they've got a couple guys that pass the ball with high assist numbers, pass the ball well. What do you see from them?
Top to bottom, they're really athletic. They got a lot of pieces from a lot of different places, a lot of transfers in there. But yeah, they're good top to bottom. They only play about 8, 9 guys at most, but their rotation's really, really solid. And you talked about gang rebounding. Moore is as good as anybody, as athletic as he is at crashing the glass and creating issues for you. But, we look at anybody from the 3 or 4 that's putting up that type of numbers, rebounding is going to be a challenge for you. But yeah, they got good bigs. They got 2 solid bigs between Godwin and Hughley. Hughley coming off the bench, he was a Pitt transfer. But they got a lot of different pieces. A lot of different pieces. They got an Oregon transfer and Suarez and McCollum, from Siena, really good player and probably one of the best guards in our league when it comes down to it. So they're really they got a lot of pieces that work really well together. They work really well together and they really complement each other. And it shows on the floor and their success they've had up to this point.
And one more real quick here. McCollum, he looks like a guy who gets on a roll from 3. That's a guy you got to be concerned about.
Yeah, that's the guy that you look at kind of like Asmus that at any given time can kind of, hit 2 or 3 shots in a row and really put you behind the 8 ball pretty quick. So we got to attack him early and often and know where he's at any given time. So he's the high volume guy of anybody in their program.
Justin Jackson.
Hey, Coach. Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good. Hey, good luck on the travel today too.
Thank you.
Hey, yeah. When you kind of look at this season and how you've had to kind of tackle it, obviously what you did defensively the last game against Texas isn't what you've always done in other games this year. The offense you might be running now, maybe wasn't quite the same offensive attack that you had, before these guys came in and stuff. Can you just kind of talk about how this team is in adjusting on the fly and maybe even the coaches too? And can you just, how much adjustments have there been this year overall?
There's been a lot of adjustments and we're not gonna, if something's not working and we continue to go to it, it makes 0 sense from a coaching standpoint. And I think sometimes your players kind of start to fall into start going through the motions if they don't feel like that you're not doing things to change. And we certainly needed to make some changes to figure out how we could be more competitive, especially defensively. We've certainly had to do a lot of things offensively with the changes in the roster and the roster management as we got to this point. And each time we had additions or subtractions, we had to manipulate that offense. But for the most part, that's stayed fairly consistent. Just a lot more wrinkles to it and a lot more different actions that went to different people. Now, defensively, we've kept on throwing that old litmus test out there to try to figure out what it is that we need to do to be successful. And we haven't been a great defensive team by any means. We've had challenges. We've thrown zones out there and done everything we can to figure out how we shore that up. So I think where we're going, I think we're going in a good direction based on our personnel now. It's something we can kind of hang our hat on defensively, and hopefully we can build on that because it is, a pretty big change from what we were doing in the past.
And, I kind of asked this jokingly, but when you're constantly adjusting, tweaking things, is it a pain in the butt from a coaching standpoint?
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt for the entire program.
Yeah.
Bottom. As soon as kids start to learn a defense and figure out, this is what we're going to do, and this is the approach, and this is the technique, and then you start to change things, and some guys pick it up, and the veterans pick it up a lot quicker, and the freshmen, and so on and so forth. And then you got higher IQ kids that pick it up faster, but everybody's got to be connected. Everybody's got to be connected. So the defensive changes, we've tried to simplify some of them and not get too intricate, and just put some simple rules and principles in there for everybody to buy into. Now, as we go and as we build, we'll be able to do a better job of taking some things away that and shore up some weaknesses. But credit to our staff. Our staff came to the table and they presented a different defensive scheme, and they said we all met and figured out how we can implement it and effectively on the fly. It's hard to do those things when you got 2-day prep and you don't have much of a window to make changes. So credit to our staff for bringing that to the table and executing it on the floor.
Thank
Bob
you, Coach.
Hartzell.
Appreciate it.
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, gotcha. Two questions. First, what does it take? What do you, in your mind, what do you think it takes for a kid like like Noah or like Pat to, when they're presented with an opportunity, to take advantage of it? I mean, so a lot of times guys go in there and don't do that.
Noah's always had a tremendous amount of confidence, and so that's kind of usually the biggest hurdle, and that's probably the biggest hurdle for Pat. Pat just, with limited time, sometimes you can't get on a roll, get in that groove. We've been able, we kind of forced our hands to try to give Pat as much opportunity as possible, and it was up to him to do, whatever he did with it. So he really showed a lot of confidence in the last 2 or 3 games, and it just kept on building. It built from I think it started with the Ohio State game, and it's built some of that confidence, and it keeps snowballing for him. So we're going in a great direction with Pat and Noah. He didn't have the best game by any means from a shooting standpoint the other day, but he could still contribute in so many ways. He led us in rebounding. He had 7 rebounds the other night, and I told the whole team, scoring is not the only way to affect a game. There's so many ways to affect a game, whether you're making shots or not. And credit to Noah for his mentality out on the floor and going and helping us on the glass. So each and every night's going to be different. Pat's on a roll right now, and we can hang our hat on what he's been doing and build on that. But I get a text this morning that he's come up with an illness too, so he's going to be checked out by the doctors and the trainers here this morning to see what he's got going on, and we'll try to isolate him as much as we can as we travel up to Pittsburgh. So it's that time of year. You never know when you're going to get the call in the morning that somebody came down with something. It sounds like Pat's that guy today.
Second question about you mentioned that Oklahoma has one of those shooters that can fill it up on you. You have not had much success this year with guys like that. There's been a bunch of 30-point games thrown at you. Does that signify you don't have a defensive stopper, or how are you going to approach that?
Well, certainly the way we're playing now, we're not. I mean, it's not like we're playing a box and one by any means, and we're face guarding anybody. So we got a lot of help side on the back side, but we just have to be very, very cognizant of where guys like that are at on the floor. I mean, you can't dig or stunt off those guys. You can't give them any daylight whatsoever. And direct passes in the game of basketball, especially college basketball, are the ones that kill you. Guys got to have to make tough shots over, a contested hand. And, some of those guys that can fill it up, as you saw with Asmus the other night, it didn't matter whether you contest them or not. And if they're rolling, they're hard to stop. And it's a shame, especially when you see those type of performances against your team, whether it be, Blake Henson and Pitt and what they do in the next coming games, and they might have go on a scoring drought. And just so seems that every time they play the Mountaineers, and maybe those guys have their best game. But that's the way you kind of look at it as a coaching standpoint. But obviously it has something to do with our defense, and we got to figure those things out.
Thanks.
Kevin Kinder.
Josh, following up a little bit on your assistant coaches and them coming to you with some of these suggested changes. I know Deshaun brought some offensive concepts, some things that he had seen in the NBA that, kind of been a little bit. How is that, translated to the defensive side? And which of your coaches, have one of them kind of taken the lead on, hey, this is how we need to play better, help defense. These are some of the things, we need to do to shore up defense in the paint?
I would give the majority of the credit to Coach McCabe and Coach Ruoff. Coach Ruoff is probably one of the best. I would say he's attention to detail is higher than probably anybody in our staff, and he has that's a great trait to have when you're coaching defense. And I put those guys, and Jordan came up with a lot of the concepts as well and brought it to the table, and we kind of tagged Coach Ruoff with that opportunity to kind of shore up a lot of this defensive. As a head coach, you got a lot of things on your mind. You got a lot of things going on. So when you got good people behind you, and you can trust them, and without putting an official tag, it just said, Coach Ruoff, you're my defensive coordinator, so to speak. Let's anybody got questions with what we're doing defensively, go to Coach Ruoff. So he's taken that role on in the last 3-4 days, and has done an excellent job with it, and we'll continue to go to him to shore up some of those defensive efficiencies.
We have time to get in one more. Mike Kazaza, you're our final question for today.
All right, two, if that's okay.
Yes.
Josh, you just the roster stuff, some health stuff, travel, illness now. You mentioned before, like, you guys have gotten through the trouble, I guess. Is it refreshing just to like focus on Big 12 basketball games, knowing that you have pretty much everybody there and getting used to it? And Jesse's the last piece to fall into place, and kind of, I mean, knock on wood, I guess, here, but it seems like all the big waves are behind you now.
Yeah, hopefully there's smoother sailing ahead for sure. I really look forward to having that challenge of getting Jesse back into the equation. It's a great challenge to have. So yeah, but settling into Big 12 play and seeing teams compete each and every night, guys that you're going to see ahead, even when you're scouting Oklahoma and you got Kansas the following game. So you're more familiar with the teams you're playing night in and night out, because when you're watching Oklahoma, you're watching Kansas as well. So that's just the way it kind of works, and you become way more familiar with each other. It's certainly not the way it was in the past, where it's a perfect round robin where you're playing home and away, and there's more teams to scout. But still the same concept. You know your opponent probably better than you do by any means in the non-conference play, and that's the same goes for not just the coaching staff. It's the players, because they see these guys compete night in and night out, and then they have a better understanding of the tendencies of certain personnel as they're coming in when it comes to league play.
And then I don't know if this will make much sense. You can correct me on this, but is Pat giving you a good enough look at, as I know he's not a 5, but like playing like a 5, where transitioning Jesse back in, it'll be more like what you want to do now than just if you're playing around guards. I guess let me make that less awkward. You kind of have a simulatable Jesse in there now. Like, it's not a perfect match, but you're not doing all the guard stuff first, and it's not going to be
getting Jesse the ball and being effective at inside out is a lot different than getting Pat the ball. Pat operates better with isolation and space. Jesse is more of a low post threat, an old school threat that you can throw it close and get you a bucket, whether it be on a high-low action or a rip screen or whatever that may be. Pat, as you saw the other night, we kept isolating him with space, and whether it be a short corner or with a wing, he's pretty good at one-on-one situations. When there's a lot of help, it's not really the case. But they're two different players in a lot of ways, and defensively, Pat has done a great job buying in from that standpoint of guarding 5s, which he certainly is out of position. He's more of a 4 than he is a 5, but he's bought in and done a great job shoring some of that up for us. But this is just making Pat more versatile and more marketable going down the road. So he's kind of taking that challenge on, and he's going to benefit from it just as much as we will in terms of his progress and development.
Would it be better for the players though, knowing that they don't have to completely abandon the idea of having an inside presence? Like they have a guy there now, and they're going to have another guy in a couple of days here too. It seemed like it helps them mentally turn that corner.
Well, I hope it's a couple of days, but I don't know if we're quite that close. But yeah, it helps. Certainly, like I said, they're different, but it's nice to have, especially defensively, a guy that's can guard to 5, and we don't have to rep as much of doubling the post, which we're always have that in our pocket, but it's not easy to do so if you got a good passing big man. And a lot of these bigs in this league are great passing bigs.
Members of the media, thank you for your time. Coach Eilert, thank you, and safe travels.
Thank you.